Good morning, friends. And today I would like to give some introduction about the computing or programming or processing. Generally, these three words are used as a synonyms, but a little bit difference because as the time being, the words are changed. The meaning of the words are actually changed. So first of all, we are going to be discussing about the programming. So what do you mean by the programming? Generally, people feel that we can learn something. So that means any computer language or any programming language to make some operations with the help of the computer. So we feel here the programming is simply a old word. That means the word which is used previously, and currently we are using the term computing. Computing means we are going to be perform certain tasks with the help of the computer. The processing is also the same word, but in the concept of the highly technically when we describe about the digital devices functioning, we are using the processing. That is also representing the work of digital devices. So computing. So when we are discussing about the computing, what actually we are going to be compute, or simply I will give you an example. Suppose we are going to be add two numbers with the help of the digital device. 2 plus 3 that equal to 5. This is also computing. Or we are going to be measure the body temperature or something, what it may be, with the help of the digital device. This is also computing. And you can perform several tasks with the help of the digital device. These are simply known as the computing actually. So when we are going to be computing, we can understand what actually we are doing. That means the computing means we are going to be considering certain data, right? And for this data we are going to be adding some rules or logic, how this data to be processed. That means processing logic. According to this processing logic, the digital device will process the data and generate the output. That means generate the result. This is simply known as the computing. So here we are going to be consider one more time. That is, in computing, what we are going to be doing means we are simply processing the data. Hence, we can understand completely about the computing. So first of all, we can understand the characteristic of the data. So what is the characteristic of the data? Simply, the data is a raw fact. Okay. Then, what are the different categories or types of the data? The data is divided into the two categories. One is the discrete and another one is the continuous. So what do you mean by the discrete? Suppose the numbers, example numbers, for example 2, 3. Suppose these numbers are generally the 3 maybe appear after 2, but we can observe clearly, we can analyze philosophically, there is no relation in between the 2 and 3. That means 2 represent certain quantity and 3 represent some another quantity. and some certain quantity. So there is no relation between 2 and 3. That's all. And what do you mean by the continuous? That means let us consider the temperature. This is also be finally represented in the form of the numbers, but what it may be, this is the actually the continuous data, that is the 23.2, 23.000 something 1 degrees and 23.0010 and like that. That means it is continuously vary. So the data, finally we conclude that the data has two categories. One is the discrete data, another one is the continuous data. And then we can come to one point, whether we perform the computing or whether we perform the operations with the help of the digital devices or computers, either on the discrete data or on the continuous data. Suppose the computing which is performed on the discrete data then such a computing is known as the generally programming or hard computing. Suppose the computing or the processing which is performed on the continuous data is simply known as the soft computing. Moreover, this area, that is the programming or the hard computing, is saturated today. The most of the things, innovations and utilization and research is going on the soft computing.